Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Moeez. I'm the head of community here at Cloudways, and today's webinar is an interesting one because today we are going to be talking about accessibility, yes, and the upcoming Accessibility Day. Now, I'm not an expert in accessibility, so I have these two amazing people with me here today, Michelle Frechette and Joe Dolson. Just to give you a quick intro on who these amazing people are, if you don't know already, so Michelle is a so Michelle is the director of community engagement for StellarWP at Liquid Web. She, along with her day job, she also is the podcast barista for WP Coffee Talk. She is the co-founder of Underrepresented Tech. She's the creator of wpspeakers.com, creator of wpcareerpages.com, and going through that list, you should assume that she's a very busy woman, which is no wonder because she has been called the busiest woman in WordPress by Matt Mullenweg at a WordCamp. That too. Along with her, I have Joe Dolson with me here today. Joe is a WordPress plugin developer. He is a web accessibility consultant, owner of Accessible Web Design. He's part of the Make WordPress Accessible team, the amazing team that is behind making to improving accessibility in the WordPress ecosystem. And I would like to welcome both of you in this session today. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle and Joe. Let's start off this webinar. Let's start off this session with a basic definition, a basic introduction of what exactly is accessibility and who does it benefit exactly.
Joe, I'm going to let you grab that one.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and dive in on that one. So the fundamentals of web accessibility are making sure a website or a web accessed interface is usable by people with disabilities. And that covers all range of disabilities, people who are blind, hard of hearing, people with mobility impairments, people who have learning impairments such as ADHD or dyslexia. There's an enormous range of potential people who can be benefited from this. It benefits realistically everybody because making these websites usable by people with disabilities frequently results in making them easier to use for people who don't have those disabilities. One of the major things is making sure you have keyboard accessibility. And lots of users are dependent on keyboards. They have to use this website using their keyboard. But all users use the keyboard part of the time. And so it's just convenient if you are already somewhere and you can just hit the tab key and you go to the next thing and great, you've done it. Great. Some people depend on that. Everybody benefits from it. So this is kind of the fundamentals of what we're trying to do with accessibility is get people to understand that when you embrace these principles and make your website truly accessible to everybody, you're making it better for everybody.
Yeah, I like to say, just like when curb cuts were made in sidewalks so that wheelchairs could roll up onto sidewalks, it also benefits people pushing strollers or delivery people who have dollies and carts that they have to use. They're not, you don't have to be in a wheelchair to use accessible features.
Right.
And so I think, if you can think about physical accessibility in the offline world, it kind of is parallel to what we think about when we talk about the online world.
Yeah, everybody benefits from these features.
And that's a great point, Michelle. Lastly, when you said that you don't have to be in a wheelchair to use that particular feature, because I personally, when I became a father, I started using that stroller, and I then understood the importance of having that slope on the sidewalks where you obviously you don't have to lift the stroller every now and then. So yeah, that's a great point, Michelle. Joe, you were saying something?
Oh, I was just agreeing with Michelle.
Okay.
That whole issue of circumstantial accessibility needs, the needs that you have temporarily because you've broken a leg or because you have a child in a stroller or you just have your arms full of a bunch of heavy boxes. And so suddenly, being able to hit that control that opens the door for you suddenly becomes incredibly valuable because everybody needs these part of the time. Some people need it all of the time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, so now that we have established a general definition of what accessibility really is, the second question that sort of arises naturally is that why is having 24 hours dedicated to WordPress accessibility important? I mean, if you talk about the web, if you talk about websites or different applications, Why is it important to have accessibility all the time? And what can people expect to learn during that time?
I'm excited about the fact that it's a 24-hour event because accessibility doesn't just exist in one time zone. And so wherever you are in the world, when you're working or awake, you'll have access to a live event that's happening at that time. Now, the counter side of that is, but I can't stay awake for 24 hours. How can I watch everything? And we will package those up and we will have them out on the web as individual sessions. I don't know how shortly thereafter, but pretty quickly in the next week, couple of weeks after that, we'll have all of those out there ready for people to be able to pick and choose which ones they want to go back to or they had to miss because of a meeting or needed sleep. And so, but it's also just more exciting when you can actually be there watching it live and you can be in the chat and you can ask questions and you can do some networking and see what questions other people are asking that maybe you didn't even ask or have in your own mind. And so the 24-hour event is really so that we can span the globe, but also like I'm a night owl. So like I'm more likely to watch a webinar at midnight than I am at 9 a.m. So for me, I don't even have to be on the other side of the world for that to be the right time zone. So it's just really accessible, if you will, to people everywhere. And we have speakers from all over the world in different time zones. And also, this is just a little fact I'll throw in there that is not related to that question, but about 24% of our speakers self-identify as having a disability, which is about equal with what the general population is. So we are actually, embracing the things that we talk about, and we're learning from the people who actually need accessibility on the web from their own personal experiences, which I think is pretty cool.
I mean, as far as, making it a 24-hour event, when we first founded this event in 2020, a lot of that was ultimately about making it an experience. Because one of the things that goes away when you're doing a fully virtual digital event is it's harder to make it an experience for the attendees. At a conference, you've got the hallway track, you're chatting with people, you go to this, you go to that. It's lots of fun. And in an online event, sometimes it can feel kind of missing. But by turning it into this 24-hour intense experience, I think it gives it more impact. It's just kind of like, this is a thing. And so it's a fun way of doing it. And I know at least one person who did stay up for the whole thing at least once.
That's
Joe
a
Simpson.
that's a really good idea. I mean, we just we just wrapped up our own online event with the prepathon that we did a few weeks ago, and then before that we did the Web Growth Summit. Both of them were online events, and I think having a 24-hour track, I think that's a really good idea. I think that is something that we can ourselves implement on our own online events as well, to again make it accessible for people everywhere.
You do learn all sorts of interesting things about technology when you try and make something run for 24 hours straight.
Yeah.
This is true.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, this whole system destabilizes after about 8 hours. Yay!
Now what?
How exciting.
That should be some experience, I must say. Okay, so your keynote this year is Lainey Feingold. Can you tell us more about her and what her session will cover exactly?
So it's Lainey Feingold, just so we're clear. I don't want to talk too much about exactly what her session will cover because, in all honesty, we kind of like to make that first keynote an experience as well. It should be, we're not going to reveal the entire scope of that talk in advance, but it is a really important talk. Lainey is one of the foundational thinkers in the legal world of accessibility and case law. She is responsible for this concept called structured negotiation, which is an idea of ways to approach accessibility in legal scenarios without doing a lawsuit, to have to actually have this negotiation and figure out how are we going to find that path forward. So she's a really great thinker in terms of how law works with accessibility. And so she's going to be talking about the way that accessibility is a civil right and how important that is for everybody to think about when they're building a website or when they're owning a website, when they're inviting people to use their resources. I think it's really fabulous that we have Lainey this year. I've known her for a very long time, and it's going to be fabulous.
I'm
Michelle,
really looking forward
do
to it
you have
also.
any, yeah, Michelle, do you have anything to add to this?
I'm very excited about it. I think when we listen, like none of us are lawyers, right? Well, I don't think either
Yeah.
of you are anyway. I know I'm not. But listening to lawyers talk about things like this also helps you understand how to do advocacy for yourself and advocacy for others. And so if you understand what some of the legal ramifications are, and even if she's talking about legality in the United States, for example, those same concepts carry throughout the world, right? So what does advocacy look
Mhm.
like? And so I think it's going to be really eye-opening in a lot of ways, and also just empowering for people who either have disabilities or work with people who have disabilities to understand what the advocacy looks like.
And it's an interesting thing about advocacy that um, there's always a desire to use the moral high ground to be like, this is the right thing to do, so you should do it. But there is always a point where laws have teeth. And when you
Yeah.
know the legal framework and you can say, well, it's nice for you to do this, but it is also legally mandated for you to do this, and I need you to do this.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's how you can advocate for yourself most effectively.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really excited about another
Yeah.
talk that's going to be happening later in the day, which is also a legal talk, but it's about the current state of those laws in Africa, which is
Wow.
something I personally know basically nothing about. Um, it's always one of those big challenges with law is trying to figure out what laws exist where and how do they impact you. And, I know US law, I know European law fairly well, Canadian, African,
Yeah.
Asian, no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. And there's some laws coming. Ireland's already put some pretty strict laws in place, and the European laws are coming into play relatively soon, within the next year. And so it's really important if you work internationally with your website that you are meeting the guidelines and legal requirements within those areas as well. So yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
That does make the event even more exciting now, and more interesting, I must say. So you obviously listening to you guys and you speak about this event, and how much time and energy you both and obviously other organizers are putting in to making sure that this event runs smoothly and it's as big of an event as you want it to be. Why do you choose to do that? I mean, it's not a compulsion. Obviously, it's completely voluntary. I mean, no one is asking you to do it. Why do you choose to put so much time and energy? Obviously, you guys have different things to do as well. You have your day jobs, and then Michelle obviously is busy with so many things. Joe, you contribute to WordPress as well, and then obviously you have to especially take time out of your days and weeks and months to organize this event. That sort of naturally brings up another question, which is, has web accessibility ever impacted you personally, or do you or others that maybe your friends or family, that has
Yeah.
sort of led you to invest so much time in this event?
Well, I do a lot of work in our community about underrepresentedness. And if you are ever part of any underrepresented class, then you understand what it feels like to be marginalized. And even though I haven't had web accessibility needs per se, although I will talk a little bit more about that in a second, um, for me with physical disabilities to not be able to get in a building because I can't reach the door handle and they don't have a paddle, or I can't go upstairs because there's no elevator for me to be able to go to a second floor. That is similar to how somebody who arrives at a web page that's not accessible to them feels. Like you're just denied access. You feel othered. You feel very marginalized in those respects. And having had those experiences as a person who's a wheelchair user, I don't want people who have other disabilities to have those same experiences that I have in public spaces. And so it's very important to me that the web is an accessible space. Even before I understood what web accessibility was, 10 years ago, I was building websites with where the themes were automatically, the default font, for example, was like a gray and it was a small gray. And, I'm not getting younger and none of us are. And as my eyes have aged and as I use computer screens constantly, I find that I need a bigger font and I need a darker font. There needs to be better contrast. And I don't want to have to pinch things open on my phone and, you know, blow things up on my screen to be able to see them. And other people don't want to have those experiences either. A darker font and a larger font hurts nobody, but it helps more. And so those are some of the impetus behind why I want to be involved in a day like this and in a project like this, because I want more accessibility for everybody, just like I experience accessibility in the real world. Well, I say the real world. The web is the real world. In the
Yeah,
physical world. In the physical world.
there we go. Yeah.
Thank you. I always think that
It's that
IRL, but in real
imagining
life.
world of websites.
I know. But when we say IRL, and it's like it's a weird way to say it because it
Yeah.
still is real. It's just I mean the physical world.
That's a funny thing. I mean, it's gotten more and more real because I feel like
Yeah.
it, you know, 25 years ago when you were doing anything digital, it really didn't feel very real. Um, and it is so much more real now because it's such a major part of our lives. And that segues into one of the reasons that I actually am really passionate about this is that what I'm really passionate about for people with disabilities is that they have a right to have employment and independence. And with the way the world has changed, the web has exploded the potential for people with disabilities to be fully independent, do their own banking, their own grocery shopping, their own healthcare, all of these things, if those website resources are accessible. And so often they're not. So this is something that should be an amazing, wonderful resource for people with disabilities. And because developers are insufficiently educated in how to make that happen, the experiences aren't
Yeah.
what they should be. And so for me, doing these educational events and putting these things on is just a crucial part of getting that independence available so that people can just do things for themselves. It is incredibly
Yeah.
dehumanizing when the only way you can find out how much money you have in the bank is by asking somebody to check for you, when everybody else can just do it on their own.
Right. And to go back to a point you made earlier, Joe, too, is even if it's not altruistic and you look at the legality of it, there's also other benefits. Like your bottom line can increase because other people have access to buying your products and services. If I can't see your product, if I can't access your product, you've lost me as a customer. So
Right.
you can actually increase your revenue. And we all know that Google and other search engines will value your accessibility with SEO as well. So if you don't want to be altruistic, if you want to be totally selfish and still help improve the web, I say that's okay. I would much rather you do it for the right reasons, but at least do it.
Right. I mean, you're still going to increase your market by making your website accessible. So
Right.
why not? Just do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that last point is very important because whenever we talk about accessibility, I know that we have done a few sessions around accessibility in our virtual events previously, and one of the major questions and the most common questions that we get is from business owners is that how will that affect my conversion rate? Like if I change my font size to a little bigger, if I change the color, if I increase the contrast, if I change the color of my CDA to make it more accessible to people with different disabilities, how will that affect my conversion rate? How will that affect
Yeah.
my sales if I'm an e-commerce store? So I think, as you said, like whatever reasons that you choose to do, just at least just do it so
Just
that
do it. But
yeah.
can I also throw in a little bit of a warning? There are tools out there that say that they will help you with these things, like overlays and like AI. And we want to just caution people not to lean into tools that promise but don't deliver, and actually, in some cases, make the experience worse. And so overlays are not something that we recommend at all. Using AI to describe images is a little iffy right now, right? Sometimes it hits the money and it's great. And sometimes it's like, what did it even see? Because that is nothing like what I'm looking at when I look at it. And so I just want to kind of put that out there too, as we want you to lean into accessibility, but we want you to do it the right way. And you'll learn about the right way.
Definitely. I think AI is something that has still a long way to go in terms of
Yeah.
improving its response, and I think it can definitely help in accessibility in the future. But I think what you just mentioned makes a lot of sense. Moving on to again another question regarding the WordPress Accessibility Day. So we can see that you pay a stipend, and you obviously give swag to your speakers as a compensation for their time and their efforts that they have put in into giving a session. And we know that there have to be obviously more expenses for organizing something like this. Obviously, you do this on a platform. Obviously, that would require some finances going into that as well, and obviously other things that you think about that takes up some monetary expenses. So how does WP Accessibility Day in itself sustain its existence? How do you make sure that it happens year on year? You get like, are there any sponsors, or do you finance it yourself? Like, how does it sustain itself?
So, yes, a lot of the financing comes from sponsors. And, that's one of the reasons that we are incredibly appreciative of all of our sponsors. For example, Cloudways, because that's what makes our event possible. Sponsorship is the primary source of funding. We really try and avoid ever being in the situation where our organizing team have to personally put money into this. And we've been very successful with that. People are passionate about accessibility, and they have been willing to put up resources to make this happen. And we are incredibly appreciative of that. We also have received donations from attendees. We've got a class of sponsors are micro sponsors, which are kind of on that funny boundary between donations and sponsorship because they basically are self-selecting. We don't contract with them, but they have been phenomenal. And this is really setting us up well for being able to ensure that we can continue to do this event, because as long as we can rely on a good degree of sponsorship, we can continue to put on a great event and really provide this information as widely as possible.
Absolutely. We have more than doubled our micro sponsorships this year and hit our marks on all the other sponsorships. We sold out on platinum and gold and silver. And so we are just really, I think it's exciting that so many companies want to support something like WP Accessibility Day, because that means that they're also interested in making sure that the web is more accessible space. So it's nice that we have the money, but it's even nicer that they are leading into accessibility.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I would also like to ask, like, are all the sponsors you get, like, are all of them from a WordPress background? Because I understand this is a WordPress Accessibility Day, but accessibility in itself is very universal. So are all those sponsors WordPress companies or WordPress individuals from the WordPress community, or is just that from everywhere that you get sponsors from?
They're from a wide variety of different industries. There is certainly a heavy representation from the WordPress community and from hosts, but we've got some specifically accessibility companies. TPGI is accessibility consultancy and advocacy group. We've got Grackle Docs, which do document remediation. These are all great organizations that just aren't in the WordPress space specifically. They might do some things in WordPress because, let's be honest, WordPress is enormous and everybody does something in WordPress, but they are definitely not specifically WordPress companies. And that's been a great thing, that we've managed to get support from so many organizations that are beyond that scope.
It's hard. It's good. It's a good thing.
And I think that's what makes the WordPress space and the WordPress community so awesome, because when you start to think about the community at large and you want to do an event or a gathering or a meetup of this sort, where it sort of naturally organically benefits the entire community or a particular strata of that population, I think they all come together and sort of help to make that happen. Finally, Michelle and Joe, just wanted to ask, WordPress Accessibility Day, when is it this year? Does it cost something to attend apart from the time? Does it cost anything to attend this event? And how can people find this event, and how can they sign up?
It's coming up really quickly. So it's October 9th and 10th. It's a 24-hour event. Starts, well, depending on where you are in the world, it starts in our morning over here in the US, but wherever you are, you can go to our website. Time zones are hard. Time zones are challenging for me. But you could go to 2024.wpaccessibility.day/register to register. It is a free event to register for. If you want our really cool t-shirt, we're not wearing them today because we've been wearing them a lot lately. It's a great orange t-shirt. At least I put on orange, Joe.
Yeah.
It's a great orange t-shirt, and it's got a fun saying on it to support this year's event. You can purchase a t-shirt with a donation at the time that you register if you choose to, but it's not necessary. But you do have to register to attend because it's a Zoom conference, not just open on YouTube, for example. And so you want to make sure that you are registered so that you will have access to the event all day long.
Yes. The registration is largely because we want, one of the things that we provide and one of the things that our sponsors support is being able to have ASL sign language interpretation for the entire event.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those things that really is helped a lot by being able to use Zoom webinars, because that allows us to have that separate pop-out window where people who want to view that signing can do it at any place in the screen they want, at any size they want. Whereas with all other systems, we could have it,
It's
no
teeny
registration
tiny.
and stream it to YouTube, but then if you're trying to watch the signing, you've got this tiny, tiny little box, and you also need to have very good vision.
Yes.
So
and
this has been an enormous advantage to be able to do that.
Yeah. And we also have live human captioning at the same time. So if you prefer to read it rather than ASL isn't the same all over the world, right? So it's American Sign Language.
Well, ASL is the same all around the world, but it's not the only
ASL,
language of sign
right.
language.
It's not the only sign language around the world is what I meant. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll also add BSL, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We need more
but we also
sponsors for
have
that.
but as opposed to relying on AI transcriptions, we have live human transcriptions happening at the same time, so that everybody can actually understand what's being said.
Perfect. So just to confirm, this is a free event, or does it cost anything to register?
It is a free
100%
event,
free.
100% free.
Awesome.
You can make a donation if you want, but it is in no way required.
Exactly.
Got it. Michelle, Joe, it has been a super pleasure having you here today, talking about accessibility and the WordPress Accessibility Day. Obviously, I think that a lot of people listening to this will now have a better idea of what accessibility is and why they should be attending this event. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this will be going to that link and signing up for this event and attending this event as well. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Joe. The work that you've been doing in the community to ensuring that WordPress is accessible, the web is accessible to people all over the world. And I think I'm sure that your efforts are not going in vain. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Joe, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And to everyone watching, I would urge every one of you, I have already signed up, by the way, so I would urge every one of you to sign up for the event and encourage your friends, your family members, your colleagues to also sign up and attend this amazing initiative that Michelle, Joe, and other organizers have organized for us. So thank you, everyone. Until next time, see you.